Hello.
Hi Ben, it's Gillian.
Hi Gillian.
Nice to talk to you. How are you?
I've been better, but yeah, crack on.
Good. I just wanted to fill you in a little bit on the current where things are with the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner and the fact that I am now the Chief of Staff. Paul Hammond retired in August, September last year. So I will be the one that's looking at the complaint that you've sent in to us.
I'm terribly sorry, can I interrupt you? It was sent for the Crime Commissioner, which is Matthew Barber.
Yeah, no, I know, but I have a look at it. Somebody needs to look at it for him and do all the digging around and all the delving.
Has he himself yet read it in any way, shape or form?
It's been forwarded to me at the moment, and then I've got
has Mr. Barber literally seen it yet?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
I've got a meeting with him tomorrow.
Okay, it was very clear on the document.
Let me have a look.
Yeah.
Have a look.
It was a folder. Yeah. Are you? Yeah. I'm presuming you've been in receipt of the folder that I sent by recorded delivery yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that literally says on it, for the attention of Matthew Barber.
Yeah.
Okay, I mention this not just to be pedantic about points of law and process, but because the issue of certain people intervening is absolutely to the heart of a lot of what's gone wrong with this, and so there's a it's a house trick of TVP for certain people to take on certain things. Conflict of interest being a profound problem. So my you know what I mean? I've had people who own doggy companies with the very person about whom I'm complaining intervene on process. It gets unlawful. So it doesn't bode well that within 24 hours of sending how many thousand words on that point, that essentially you're intervening on this before Matthew Barber's even had a chance to look at it.
The reason I'm calling you, Ben, in all honesty, is to reassure you that it will get a proper look at, because I'm the new Chief of Staff, completely independent of anything that's gone on in the past. And so I'm going to have a look at it and make sure that Matthew gets to see it and make sure that we have a thorough look at it.
Okay, can I just say, that is specifically for Matthew Barber's eyes, okay? The issue of in-house favours and who knows whom and all that stuff, like when people are business partners and Facebook friends making decisions on whether or not things process, there's like TVP has enormous mud on its face about this exact point, and from what I hear, not just with me. Okay, so you'll forgive me, and you're fresh as a daisy. Then, if you're new, this is not any kind of ad hominem at yourself, but this is exactly the point of concern. If after Mr. Barber has read it, in having to address the large number of complaints and concerns that are listed within it, and the questions that are asked of him within it, if in order to achieve those ends, he has to, at that point, bring in somebody to assist him with that, then at that point, I haven't said that is not to take place, but for this to be processed beforehand, when people are sending documentation at great expense, right, to an individual, and it says Matthew Barber, it's not for his office or somebody deputised on his behalf, either ad hoc right now or in an enduring capacity therein or anything like that. It literally says for Matthew Barber. So I've had a couple of, I'm not going to break into the whole story here, but I've had a number of incidents with TVP where I've specifically sent stuff in specifically for certain people, and it's been conveniently intervened by other people, and then there's something not proper about the reception of documentation if that's going on. It's not for other people to intervene and intercept this. I have to be honest, I'm frankly livid that it's on your desk and not his. Do you know what I mean? Because that's in and of itself, because what you're essentially saying there is that people can send documentation in to specific individuals in offices which are absolutely justified and defined by them being responsible for certain concerns, and that other people get dibs and bagsy on that. Now, that's not proper.
So let me explain to you why it is proper, okay? My role as Chief of Staff and the head paid of service is also to be the monitoring officer of legislation and to make sure that everything that both Matthew and his office does is right and proper. So whilst there is the opportunity for Matthew to have a look at this, what I want to do on your behalf is make sure that it is handled.
Okay, what I want somebody to do on my behalf is follow the instruction on the front of it, which is for Matthew Barber to read it. Now you'll you'll forgive me. You literally now, because of the way people have been promoted and because of the way this has gone on and on, if it had been up to me, this wouldn't have happened in the first place. It would have been sorted 8 years ago. Okay, so basically, people who are listed and named, people about whom I have submitted complaints, are now ranking staff within your PCC team, okay, in positions of ironically, in a poacher turned gamekeeper way, in positions of authority about this kind of thing. So you'll forgive me if I'm a little bit anxious about people, despite their declarations of newness, you know what I mean? You're like, as far as I know, because we've had this again at every level of this. At every level of this, I've had this where people who are literally sat there sharing, people who are Facebook friends and business partners and all sorts of things with the very people that I'm complaining about. And like I say, if this all went before a judge, which sooner or later it's probably going to, they'd go berserk at you, because they'd just be saying, how is this due process? How is this, you have to be mindful of a conflict of interest. So now I don't want that document separated. I don't want it disturbed. It's for Mr. The questions in it are directly asked. The questions in it are directly aimed specifically at Matthew Barber. There's questions in there. Right, there's questions in there that literally, and it is worded so as to say, when this goes further than this, in the absence of this and having not been dealt with properly, and it will if it isn't, right, okay, at that point then, I will be able to say to any court or panel, this was presented to Mr. Barber, and because it says in it, it'll say things like, you are given an opportunity to comment or respond on this point. Failure to do so means you are accepting that this is okay, and it personally involves Mr. Barber in that way, so he very much needs to look at it. The other one is not to be churlish, but he's paid a not inconsiderable sum of money for that responsibility of oversight. His job isn't just to send amusing tweets on the history of Walt Disney and other such things. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Much as he likes to fill the unforgiving minute doing such things. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's in a time of public austerity and an absence of accountability in the police force, which people are deeply concerned about. The guy sat there posting factoids about on this day. It's like he has work to be getting on with, certainly since yesterday when that arrived. So, like I say, I'm not having a go at you, and there's absolutely no personal malice, but you have to understand my position. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what, Ben? That's exactly the reason I phoned you, was to have a conversation about, because I saw in your, at the bottom of your letter, that you wanted to have a face-to-face meeting with Matthew in relation to this.
100%.
So essentially what I was phoning to talk to you about is A was to say to you, Paul Hammond is no longer in charge of the office that I am. And hopefully to start to build confidence with you that I will be looking at things independently, in partnership with Mr. Barber, and Mr. Barber will be having a look at your letter and your
people who work in your office. People with whom you will drink coffee and swap biscuits are listed as people of concern within this narrative. You know what I mean? Like, you're. This is no ad hominem against you yourself personally, but anybody other than Matthew Barber getting involved with this is already rubbing me the wrong way with this. And as I say, you know, this is a last-ditch final attempt by myself before this goes to other places legally. As I've said on a gazillion occasions over the phone, in emails, you know, either Thames Valley finally starts cleaning its own house, or other people are going to clean it for it. Do you know what I mean? And
so I'm really sorry that my phone call, in an effort to be reassuring and helpful to you, is rubbing you up the wrong way.
It's not that it's no. The act.
That's not.
Yeah, but you miss. No. But the act of anybody else other than Mr. Barber phoning me to tell me they are going to be involved. Before the fact of him reading it, in and of itself, this is not because you've toned it wrong or your choice of language, intrinsically within itself, that is going to be a source of deep and frustration to me, not a reassurance. Now I appreciate your honesty.
That's helpful to know.
Because it's against process.
Conversation.
Well, sooner or later, Thames Valley Police has to start having honest conversations. You know, the chance in a blue moon. But basically, so it's and as I say, you could be anybody. This is no slight or slant on you.
I'm not taking it personally at all.
But it perhaps evidences your lack of understanding of the scenario. That if you had any optimism, any expectation that you're ringing me to tell me of your involvement would be anything other than an irritant to me. Like, I don't mean that in an unkind way. I'm sure you're a lovely person. We'll go out for a pint. But this is not. This is anybody phoning me about this right now. But you're phoning me to say, I'm dealing with this, and Mr. Barber hasn't yet looked at it. That is absolutely against. Like, I don't know what somebody would have to do legally. Like, it's not sent, the package, at great expense to post it. The moment you go over 2 kilograms, it gets dear, right? At great expense, I've sent that package, right? It's nothing compared to the time of having typed everything all up and evidenced it.
All together,
right,
okay. I'm sure.
And basically, it doesn't say for the Office of the Police Crime Commission, because I'm intensely aware of who else you have working there. It doesn't say for the Office of the Police. I've had this in the past where I've had essentially email arguments where I've sent stuff in saying for the eyes of the Crime Commissioner only, and then people who have got back to me have said, well, I'm dealing with this. And then the people who were dealing it owned bloody doggy training companies with the people who I was complaining about, and it's like it is corrupt. It is corrupt.
I have been briefed on that.
It is corrupt.
I have had a conversation.
It is corrupt. If it is there's a it is corrupt.
Whether it's corrupt,
it is corrupt. It is corrupt. If you spoke to a blasted first year A-level law student who had the most veneer thin understanding of conflict of interest, they would say, hang on, that can't be right. So this is it. Other people, other than the directed recipient of communication, intervening and intercepting communications which are clearly and expressly marked for somebody, in and of itself, that's poor form and it's wrong. But the fact that when you guys have got form for this, it's even worse. So, as I say, no slants on you. This is not a personal ad hominem against yourself. It really isn't. But you're not Matthew Barber, and this is another example of me sending some stuff in, giving Thames Valley this once and final opportunity to finally get on top of this, to stop lying, to stop covering things up, and to deal with this. And the way this is being responded to is somebody, I'm sure you're perfectly lovely, this is not an attack on you personally, but somebody other than essentially the bullet points of your phone call are, hi, we haven't learned a bloody thing, and somebody other than the person to whom you expressly titled your communication is intercepting it and is now dealing with it. That's all I'm hearing. That's all I'm hearing. So does that make sense? So
thank you for the feedback, Ben. Honestly, it's really helpful feedback. What I will commit to do with you is make sure that I have a conversation with Matthew about this now. So I'll go and give him a call and ask him to have a look at this as a matter of
He doesn't. Okay, can I just say, he doesn't need to have a look at it. He needs to read every word of it.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. That's
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because it's personally
is
okay.
Shorthand for read it.
There's enough euphemisms, shorthand, and well, let's stick with words that mean words. Okay, so basically, that every word, because it is not just it's specifically titled to him, but given his professional role for which he's paid money and for which he's accountable, right? Okay, it specifically asks certain questions of him. Okay, it is about him. It is to him. It is not that the response to those things cannot be deputized. That's the whole point. Okay, right? So basically, now this has gone on for a great length of time, partly because there's been a hilarious process of, like, you know, people lose this and they can't find that, and all people take forever to respond and all sorts of stuff, right? I am not looking for a 24-hour turnaround on this, okay?
No,
and it would be well, it's not helpful, it's obvious, okay? And if anything, if Mr. Barber himself rang me now, had he phoned me, not yourself, yes, we'd have bypassed concern number one, in that, you know, I'd be thinking at least it's on his desk, not somebody else's who sat there drinking coffee with the Vickies and Sierras of the world. But basically, I'd straight away be saying, well, unless you're phoning me up to tell me that you're going to be reading it this weekend, we've not yet got anything to talk about, because, you know, you can't possibly, what with you tweeting all about Disney as well, you can't possibly have read it all. So it is very specifically worded.
Absolutely.
And to that end, it needs to be very specifically read. Now, I'm prepared to wait a sensible duration of time for Mr. Barber to read that himself. Okay, himself. This has gone on long enough.
Well, just to be really specific, Ben, and it was one of my reasons for calling.
Okay. Hello?
Sensible period of time, because I want to manage your expectations, because I guarantee you Matthew will read this in full, and then he will need to task out some bits for some information to come back to him on it, so that he has all the information that he needs to be able to respond to you. So for you, what defines sensible for me? Okay,
I'm going to propose two scenarios, and feel free to choose one. Okay, right? One possibility is that you now have 28 days. 28 days seems to be a fair thing. At the end of those 28 days, somebody is going to phone me. Right, okay, now I 100% need to speak with Mr. Barber about this. Okay, my own preferred view, given the enormity of concerns listed there, and truth be told, the only reason there's so many concerns is because Thames Valley has so repeatedly done so much wrong and for so long. Okay, it's not that I'm some sort of fastidious over-processor of legality. I have 211 other things to be doing rather than this. This is like, okay, right? So basically, possibility one is that you have 28 days, quite sensibly, for Mr. Barber to stop tweeting about what happened on this day in 1937 and to actually do his job and read something like that, okay? Right, if at the end of those 28 days, one possibility is that myself and possibly a solicitor or a Mackenzie friend come down, and at that point then we have a quick meeting with Mr. Barber, whereby he quickly mentions to us his understanding, he communicates to us his understanding of what we've sent him, on the off chance that for some reason he's missed some of it. Okay, that can be inside of half an hour of a meeting. Okay, right, at that point then he gets an opportunity to speak to me, and if it's not patently obvious in the correspondence, he gets to definitely get aware of exactly what the concerns are. Okay, right, okay, right, he then at that point, when he himself has communicated to me his awareness and understanding of these issues, I'm perfectly willing, he at that point can stipulate a time delay. That might be 1 month, might be 2 months. I wouldn't like to get too much past 3 months. Okay, whereby he then arranges another date where we shall convene, and in that interim he has this properly investigated by proper people and he has proper oversight on it. And then at that point, following that proper and thorough and independent investigation, he will then agree to meet the other side of that, and anybody else can turn up to that meeting as well as Mr. Barber. It would be unfair of me to say I'll bring somebody if he's not going to. And then the findings and conclusion of that part of it can happen at that meeting. Now, if that's an interlude meeting, and he wants to meet back, take more conversation, take more comments, asks me stuff, he's more than welcome to do that. But given the enormity and seriousness and otherwise where this is going of this, right, I suggest that as a process. So he has 28 days now to read it. At that point, then he himself gets in touch and arranges a meeting. That then gives myself an opportunity to sort of make sure he's understood that. That gives him an opportunity to ask any questions and to make sure that he is then in a position to properly go and investigate that, and to reassure me that the way, and more to the point, the who of that investigation will be done properly. Okay, right? Because if this isn't done properly, trust me, this is going places. Okay, and then at that point, then when that investigation has taken place, at that point, then we will reconvene. Now, the other version is that I now give you a little bit longer than 28 days, and then it's all done without any pre-conversation with Mr. Barber, and that I then, after that investigation, speak with Mr. Barber after he's gone and done his investigating. Now, my own view is that given the enormity of this and the concerns that Mr. Barber, he may well be a speed reader, but it's important that he's very aware of this. And to be fair, there's a lot going on there because a lot has been done. My own view is that it probably assists Mr. Barber better if he has a bit of a pre-read of this and then meets me, and then there's a slightly longer period where it's investigated proper, where he's both heard from me, read the letter, right, and then he goes and does the my own view is that that's more helpful to him, because he can get a better sense of who I am, and he can get a better sense of what my concerns are. That's my suggestion. You yourself don't have to choose on that today, because it's not you choosing, it's Mr. Barber choosing.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's what I was going to say.
Right. Okay.
What I want to do is put those two options to Mr. Barber.
I know this, and I mean this. There is no way I can say this without sounding. I'll just say it. There's no way I can say this without sounding a knob. Okay, but I'm going to say in the nicest possible terms, and I'm speaking to you as a professional. I'm not speaking to you as a personal individual. In the nicest possible terms, I don't give two hoots what you want or would like. I know that sounds confrontational, but I really don't.
Not at all.
I really don't. Do you know what I mean?
I'm hearing from you, Ben. In all honesty, I'm hearing your frustration. And
Can I just interrupt? I respect if this conversational massage approach of what I'm hearing from you, but it sounds like somebody's done half a counselling course. We're way past that. We're way past that.
Not at all.
We're way past that. Okay, if as a human being you're able to recognise my frustration, then fine, and if then great. I'm very aware as to the logistics. But I don't need that echoed. I don't need you to affirm that. I'm well aware of where I am with this, and I'm well aware where this is going. I'm not crapping on you. I'm just saying this is way past active listening and knee-hugging comments. Do you know what I mean? It really is.
What I wanted to say to you, Ben, is I completely understand and hear the frustration, and
you don't completely understand the frustration as you've not been through what I've been through, and almost certainly you haven't, even as a superficial sounding thereof, you haven't certainly read the how many thousand words. Right, so it's a slight insult for you to tell me you completely understand my frustration, isn't it?
There's nothing I'm going to be able to say.
Well, no, that suggests it. No, just to quickly focus on that, because it is important. Do you honestly think it's fair for you to say to me that you completely understand my frustration?
From a perspective of, maybe the word I should use was recognise rather than understand.
I think that's a bit better. Yeah.
I haven't stood in your shoes.
Yeah.
However, just from your tone, and also the detail detail that's in your correspondence and some of the things that you're saying to me, I completely recognise your frustration. And my goal, completely misjudged, I get, completely misjudged. My goal from this conversation was to get from you what your expectations of Matthew were moving forward. Now, you've now given that to me, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And what I am now going to do is what I intended to do in the first place, is to sit down with Matthew, explain to him the importance of reading through this in detail, and asking him to make sure that this is prioritised and looked at.
Brilliant.
So, but I've completely misjudged it, Ben.
Okay. Can I just say one thing? And again, there's no way I can say this without sounding like a knob. Perhaps a better point to focus on is not what my expectations are, but what his, perhaps a better way of framing this is what his obligations are. Okay, the meat and taters of this is not what I would like. Yeah, what I would like or what I would want. Yeah, those are that, you know, you're somebody who perfectly understandably uses that kind of language. That's given the professional accountability he has and the responsibility defined in his position and what has gone on provably so and repeatedly so in the police force for which he has oversight. Yeah, what this is about are the best way of him framing and contextualising this is I am bringing to his attention, in the ridiculously unlikely scenario that he had no prior knowledge of it, I am making him formally aware of his responsibility to do something about his own house. And so this is not what I would like or what I would want or anything that. This is about what he has to do, because if 4 o'clock in the morning, if I was lucky enough to be asleep, the things that have gone wrong done by TVP exist, and the legal necessity to put those things right and for people to be held to account exists. It's not a function of my will or my preference or my emotion. Yes, side conversation, as a human being, I can talk through the absolute shit and awfulness of all this, and it's caused other things. It's as I mentioned in the correspondence, it's contaminated and spread lies to other areas of my existence. It's like some evil shit that keeps metastasizing into ever new areas. Right, okay, right, so I can talk about those emotional frustrations. This is not about, in a weird way, this isn't even about me. This is now because he's been made aware of the people in his own ranks who have done what they have done and continue to do what they do, and this is about his professional responsibility to deal with that. And if it's not dealt with properly, then sooner or later it will be before somebody big enough and high enough and important enough that they will look at the correspondence as it's been written, and it's very specifically written in a way which is basically saying of him, if failure for you to act on this point is, it shall be taken at all future examination of this material that you yourself, professionally and personally, are okay with TVP doing this kind of thing, and not only doing it but deliberately avoiding any kind of follow-up when it's asked of them. This is about him. It's not about me, as weird as that sounds. I am the author of it. It's not about me. It's about what TVP has done. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, this is about him now. It's now about him.
However, the bit around your expectations that I wanted to get is, you could have been writing to him again in 5 days' time saying, why haven't you responded? I wanted to get an understanding of your expectations. Now, thankfully, you're being really realistic in those expectations and not expecting a response within 5 days.
No, what you've done is what I will applaud the immediacy of is you phoning me within 20, because the way the rest of the world works, can I say this before I shoot off? The way the rest of the world works. So occasionally, when I worked in forensic mental health, when I worked in prisons, when I worked in hospitals, if somebody phoned me up with a thing that could be sorted within 2 minutes, I could get back to them, and in the phone call or the email in which I respond to them, the thing is addressed. If somebody brought something to my attention that was big and important and was clearly going to take some of my time to sort out. What I would, they would, and the rest of the working world, public and private sector alike, does this. You get back to somebody immediately saying, right, I acknowledge the thing you sent me, right? But now it's going to take some time for me to do this. A distinction evidently deliberately lost on the professionally late Mr. Hammond. Do you know what I mean? So this is the thing. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to pen how many thousand words and expect Mr. Barber to and as I say, if he had got back to me claiming to have read it within 24 hours, I'd have just laughed. So, like I say, it's not my expectation. It's sensible understanding as an adult who lives in the world. It's a professionally written, very properly researched piece of material that I am asking Mr. Barber, as is his role and responsibility given his job, to look at. I have a realistic understanding of how long that's going to take to A, read, B, think about, and C, then, if he wants to, at that point, start to investigate. My own suggestion, genuinely, is that he reads it and then he has a pre-meeting, if you will, that can be quite quick.
That suggestion,
right? And then okay, because let's just pop this boil, because and then he comes and meets me. I'm really not as bad as the horribly untrue things people at your place of work seem to like to writing about me, and more to the point, seem to like writing to other people about me. Right? Okay, I've bathed old ladies. I work with children. I'm really not Jack the Ripper. Right? So basically, if he wants to meet me, he can evidence to me that he's read that material as well, because if he can, in the way that he handles it conversationally, that's fine. Brilliant. I don't expect him to have an encyclopedic memorisation of it. I'm not an idiot. Okay, if he has to bring notes, if he's got the thing in front of him, great. So he's going to say, okay, Ben, this is stuff I've got to work through. These are the things. And then great, I can say, okay, fine. That doesn't even have to be half an hour. If it probably would take more. But that gets the ball rolling. Yeah. We shake hands as an agreement of process, and at that point then he himself has looked me in the eye, shook my hand, if he will, and then he can say, right, now I'm going to go and look at this, and I'm going to have and these are the following people I'm going to have a look at this. All right, and I assure you, Ben, they're not golfing buddies of the people you're complaining about, right? Okay, and then at that point then the time period, like I'm given the enormity. I know a lot of it is repeat offence and a lot of it is repeat offenders, but given the enormity of what I'm evidencing Thames Valley Police has done, I don't expect that investigation phase, if done correctly, to happen overnight. It really isn't, right? Okay, and also I'm not being unkind here. I'm not the only person to whom and about whom Thames Valley has fucked up. So I get that you've got an itinerary of, I'm not the only person sending in a complaint. I'm not, I get that there's a queue, you know what I mean? But given the enormity of what's gone on, and more concerningly, the response, like 95% of what is in that 27 whatever thousand words is not the initial, as bad as it was, is not the initial wrongdoing September 2014. It's the subsequent wrongdoings afterwards. There's this, as has been revealed in all these horrible things that have happened in the last few years and that have been revealed by the police. Where you guys go wrong, I speak as the child of two police officers, where you chaps go wrong is people make a mistake, and rather than go, yeah, right, we cocked up, there's this constant attempt to just brush people off, be impenetrable, be unaccountable. Everybody closes ranks, or if you want people to, remember, you're one of these days, you're going to want somebody to cover for you, so you have to cover for other people. Everybody closes ranks. It's badged as camaraderie. It's badged as team spirit. It's not. It's corruption and cover-up, right? And then it's only those of us like me who keep writing and keep trying, who eventually end up having phone calls like this. Like, it's just ridiculous. And if you just dealt with things, and if 2014... right, regardless of the level and the nature of the phone calls involved and the heights of all that, if in 2014 somebody had put their hand up and said, right, we cocked up, right, Ben, come down here. Right, there's an Inspector so-and-so, he's going to have Constable so-and-so that these chaps in. Right, okay, we cocked up, Ben. Okay, right, there's a little bit of need to be seen to be public perception policy with this. We've got a little bit of a thing going on with this, and we've got a little bit of that, and we cocked up, Ben, and we got it wrong, and we're sorry. Okay, if this could have been nipped in the bud 8 years ago, Instead, if you looked at it, like if a judge looked at this, which is where it's going otherwise, yeah, a judge would take more legal issue with the subsequent wrongdoings when made aware of things. It's people hilariously pretending to lose letters. It's letters to PCCs being intercepted by somebody who's literally in business, who's a director of a company with the very person I'm complaining about, and it's all that utterly dripping in corruption stuff. And and more, as you well know at the moment, what's on the news every day is this fact: is the police are made aware of wrongdoing within their own ranks, and what they do is cover up. I've been part of a team. I've had mates. I've worked in prisons and clinics and hospitals. I know what it's like when you try and look after your friends, but there's a difference between looking after your shift mates and a lying informal process. And this has crossed the line, hugely so. Okay, so I get this is not your doing. I get you didn't do all of this. I've got no personal bones against you. No. But this is some serious stuff. And
well, I'm going to do what I can, Ben.
Yeah.
To help get this to the place that you want to get it to, in terms of having that meeting with Matthew. So accepting that I've made an error in judgment calling you before I've spoken to Matthew on it, that's fair enough.
No. Can I just say, you've not made an error in judgment in contacting me. You've made an error in judgment in the fact that you have chosen to look at this rather than go, Matthew, there's a document for you in reception.
Oh no, Matthew, yeah, and that's where the misunderstanding.
That's not a misunderstanding.
Matthew,
No.
Matthew has got the document.
Okay.
Matthew has got the document. I have also received the document.
Have you received the document? It's hard copy in.
It's been scanned in. It's been
all those pages plus appendices have been scanned in within.
Yeah.
I only sent it yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you see, when something's important, it's important.
You're telling me on the record that you have fully scanned that letter and all its incumbent appendices. What time today did you receive? I'll check on the post office. What time today was it signed for?
So the appendices are in the folder, I believe. Now, you'll tell me whether I've got all the appendices.
This is exactly a point of my concern. There's a reason that was sent in a folder. There's a reason it's together. It's not to be split. A technique Thames Valley Police has employed in the past, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is where when you have a thing with a great many sub things, that it's dealt with in a way that little bits, it gets pringled, and it loses a sense of itself. That thing is not to be subdivided. It's not to be separated. Okay, so that is improper. That is improper that has happened. Okay, like it is to be. The document refers to the appendices. They're not an after the fact thing, and they took a great deal of time to prepare. And in order, I don't know whether you've ever written a large document like that, but in order to make it remotely readable. Right, you can either incorporate all those details into the corpus of the text and have this.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, no, let me finish this. Or you either incorporate it all into the text, and it just becomes an absolute leviathan of a piece of writing, or you hang on, or you have appendices. That system of appendices, they're not. Oh, you might like to know this. It's not like a map in the back of the Hobbit. You need those appendices. That letter is not to be read in the absence of the appendices.
Yeah. So let me tell you, Matthew has got the folder and the appendices in his office. Okay. What I have got is a scanned-in version of the letter to draw it to my attention that Matthew needs to deal with this. And as monitoring officer, I need to make sure that Matthew is dealing with this properly. Legally, it's my responsibility to make sure that Matthew covers his duties appropriately.
Okay, brilliant. Can I just say one thing before we shoot off? And I'm saying this in a sense on your behalf, and so what we'll agree to then is that you're going to get back to me, let's say within a week. If somebody can get back to me within a week to tell me which version of those sort of scenarios you're going to go with?
No
yeah.
problem.
Okay. So let's say within 7 days of now, somebody that can be you. That can be you. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I don't prefer it to be Mr. Barber, but that can be you. Okay. Preferably Mr. Barber will get back to me and just say, okay, then Ben, and then he's going to say either whether it's like, Ben, okay, I'm going to take 28 days to read this, and then we're going to arrange a time for you to meet up with us, or we're going to do so. And as I say, you know, like, I'm not telling him how to sort this. I'm just saying he's got to sort this, right? Okay. Yeah. He's the police crime commissioner, not me, right? Okay. So that's so. If we just say then, not my expectation. What's going to happen? Somebody, preferably Mr. Barber, is going to get back to me within a week and to just say, okay, Ben, here's my proposed way that we do this. And as I say, just to echo this, my own preference is that I meet up with Mr. Barber first, after he's had a month or so to read the thing. We have a quick meeting then. He tells me what he's going to do and about how he's going to have it investigated and who, right? And then I say, right, we have an agreement in principle that that's how it's going to go ahead. And then we depart for whatever, you know, month, 2 months, whatever for that. Okay, right. But can I just say, very specifically within the correspondence I've had with Thames Valley and within that document, there is reference to people who you will work with on a daily basis. Okay, right. That is not your fault, and it's one of the reasons I don't want anybody other than Mr. Barber handling this, but even he works with them on a daily basis, right? Okay, so it's very hard to investigate people who you're sending a Christmas card to and who you have a drink with on a Friday, okay? Right, okay.
None of which I do, by the way, but there you go.
I can't believe you don't send Christmas cards. I'm sure you do. Right, okay. Right, okay. But there are people.
I promise you.
Okay, now just let me say this. There are people, and I'm saying this pro you, for you, okay? Given that how this is dealt with will itself be referred to in future and subsequent process. Otherwise, can I just say this clearly? Yeah, it's impossible, unless you've worn blinkers from day one on the car park, that you don't know of and don't sit next to and share offices with some of the people listed as having done criminally and unlawful things with regard to this, okay? Can I just say though, it best serves you if you don't speak to them about this until they are interviewed formally about it, and then and then the other one, right? Because I've had people cite 2020 regulations at me and then wipe their back proverbial on them. But the other one is this: is like if you don't speak to them about this, right? Okay, but these people are in a position to have control and authority over these things. When this is looked at, if it turns out that the very people who are listed as having done unlawful things with regard to this have in any way had even the most indirect involvement with the investigation thereof that we're now talking about, that's just going to be an even greater sin of the same thing. So I ask you, not as a special please, but because if it's not done, there'll be hell to pay. If not just every available effort needs to be made, quite literally nobody who's had involvement with this, whose name is listed within it, who is an item of concern within it, can have any role even arranging the bloody room that this is happening. Because yeah. Listen, do you understand that distinction, yeah?
Yeah, I completely appreciate. You don't know me from Adam, so you have no idea where my integrity sits, where anything sits. I will give you a guarantee that the only person I will be speaking to about this is Matthew. Okay,
and to that end then, when you speak to Mr. Barber, it is if you... Other than Mr. Barber, you need to read this and the clarification about the scenarios. It is absolutely vital for his sake, because this is only going to end up being before a court otherwise. It is important that when he investigates this, and as I say, I'm not unrealistic, it's almost certain that he's going to in part, he can deputise some of the administrative responsibility of it. He can't deputise the responsibility of it or the questions asked of him. That has to come from him, okay? But what I'm saying is, if, as he's inevitably going to do, he has to have somebody assist him with what is quite a large thing, not one of those people can be the people listed, any names listed within what's gone before or in any way connected with those people, because otherwise all you're showing is that when Thames Valley Police at the highest level sits down to look at this sort of thing, it puts the people's besties, like, you know what I mean? It's be like, you know, because all you're doing, it's just the same things happened again and again and again and again, and it's just to save me writing how many thousand words and having to stand there in a court giving evidence about this in the not too distant. If right now you turn the leaf, okay, if right now, so right, so you know the names. If you're not certain, before pause. Right, and go through that document. If nothing else, just take a list of names, right? And you make sure that none of those names, nobody who is pally with those names, or none of the people who've been involved with this at any point, and that includes people whose involvement I might not previously have been aware of, but did take a command role in the response. Okay. The problem with this is people tend to, people haven't gone off and joined other forces. So because this has been going on for so long, naturally when you complain about person A, it goes to person A's boss or person A's boss's boss, and this has progressed at the same rate at which these people have been promoted. So naturally, the very people who again and again I've been writing to, they're the people. Like I'll just say it. When you've got members of staff who are, like I say, poacher turned gamekeeper, who are there managing, you know, all sorts of things and compliance with this and whatever with that, and it laugh out loud the irony of them doing that. But that they are the people on whose desks complaints about what they did 4 or 5 years ago will land. Do you know what I mean? And so because of the delay process that Thames Valley is brilliant at, I've never been able to kick my legs faster than that tide. So like I've always had this problem where, like, you know what I mean? People are essentially, it's like me opening somebody's complaining about Ben Rich letter. Let's see how thoroughly I investigate this. Do you know what I mean? It's just, and I mean, I'm joking about it, but it's not funny. I mean, it's really honestly, so if only to avoid us having to do this again at a higher level where the stakes get a hell of a lot more real, for the love of God, can somebody, if you are as independent and as honest as you claim, brilliant. I'm in no position to dispute that. Don't tell me, show me. Yeah, just make sure this is done proper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I absolutely apologise for doing your head in. If you finish at 5 o'clock, I thank you for staying around.
No problem.
If you've got anybody else sat next to you in the office as you're having this phone call, thank them for staying around.
There isn't.
Right, okay. Right, well, yeah, okay. Honestly, this, as I say, I am frustrated, and I don't mean to be sharp as to, you know, your attempt to connect with the humanity of that, but this is, like I say, this has got silly now. So like I say, I appreciate you're getting back to me. It recognises that you recognise this, but this needs to be done properly. Yeah, and this has passed through a great many hands who have wiped their proverbial on it. You know, they really have. People have done. I've had it where processes against serving officers and staff were stopped. I'd write. You think this isn't the first time I've written how many thousand words? I've written umpteen pages. It's been sent special delivery. I've had letters back saying, "Oh, we've cessated our investigation of your complaint against this person because she didn't write back to us." And I've said things like, "Don't be ridiculous. I sent you a letter," and then people have said to me, "Oh, well, we didn't get it." And I've said, you did. It was signed for at your desk, HQ. I've got it here, recorded, delivered. And then I've literally had people laugh out loud over the phone, say, "Oh, well, it's amazing what can get lost between the front desk and our office," right? Thinking that that's the end of it. And then I've then said to them, knowing damn well that that's not what's happened, and I've then said, and I've said to them, "Okay, can you CC me into the email you now send flagging a confidential breach?" I've worked in prisons, I've worked in bloody mental hospitals, I've worked with courts, I've worked with clinics. If somebody was saying to me, "I've sent documentation making criminal allegations against serving staff," if that hard copy paperwork had been lost, that would be a flag. That would be, you'd have to raise that as a concern, right? So I've said to people, okay, then fine, you're saying you've lost it. Can you CC me into the email whereby you make? And I've literally had people laugh down the phone at me saying, I think we both know that's not going to happen. Like, just people are just churlishly, like, wiping their proverbial on due process and any sense of accountability, right? And the appetite is changing, like, you know what I mean? Like, the appetite, you know, the awareness that the problems that have been caused by the police being made aware of wrongdoing by their staff and covering it up are being exposed, and there's a massive smokescreen operation. Let's all make it about listening to women and let's vilify men. And it's, you know, you look at what's going on with the Met. Oh, let's look for racism, or let's look for homophobia. It's being usurped by all the usual woke smokescreening. That's not going to work forever. Sooner or later, people are going to realise that what the heart of the issue is an absence of accountability and a lack of legitimacy in the in-house and out-house processes that hold the police to account. And when that Damoclean sword falls, people's necks are going to go with it. And so I'm saying the Thames Valley now finally, as I use the exact wording, you've got the opportunity to be writing something where you're a co-signatory at the bottom of it rather than a person of mention within it. Do you know what I mean? Right? Okay. And I've asked that again and again and again at umpteen levels, and people have not only not responded, but they've vilified my very attempts to have this looked at. And then, I mean, I've had it where I've had phone calls with officers, right? And then I've asked of them legal questions like, why have you not responded to that? Why have you not done that? I've had officers hang up on me, like, because they were just banged to rights. Years later, when I finally get some sort of diagonal glance on some paperwork by way of another force and other false things, and it'll say in the log, oh, Mr. Rich became emotional and hung up. And I'm like, as you can tell from the length of this phone call, do I strike you as somebody who is reluctant to talk to Thames Valley Police?
Who is going to hang up? No.
I really am not. Your poor eardrums are begging for me to hang up. Right.
No, at all.
But do you get what I mean? But no, this is how it works. Yeah, it's like you and me go and play a game of football. I win, but you also have the job of being the local sports journalist. So you go home and you type up, yeah, I beat Ben at football. And that's how your logs work. You deliberately lose, you write stuff up as different. This is it. It's ridiculous. And the only thing that's supposed to balance that is accountability, and it's getting ridiculous. Yeah. So, like, you know, it needs to change. It needs to change. The previous PCC was a man so dodgy he couldn't stand for re-election. Was a man who was brought before malconduct panels himself, the processes of which weren't publicly exposed. I mean, I know this new guy is supposedly he's a new man, but you know, he was a deputy as far as I'm aware. Like, you know what I mean? So this is his. If he wants to truly prove, and I ask that you say this to him, okay? And I wrote this on his Twitter when it was announced that he was picked, and I said, let us hope he is his own man, that he's honest, and that he's finally going to do something about the intrinsic corruption within his own force and start holding people to account. Right, okay, let us hope that. The day this guy got voted in, right, that was my hope. So far, other than a great many million being spent on intersectional feminists who write nice things in return, and this weird personal endorsed bloody, you know, Bosch type co-arrangement you have in virtue signalling, all this sort of stuff, I haven't seen any evidence of him holding anybody to account. Thames Valley Police has a horrendous record for not holding people to account. Not a single officer lost their job over the grooming gangs cover-up. Not one. Okay? This, sooner or later, people are going to have had enough of this. And this is Matthew Barber's chance now to get on top of that. I've got no problem with the police. I used to have bloody Christmas parties around Lloyd House. My own mum and dad were in the job. Yeah, if it wasn't because you don't want to do what your dad does, I'd have joined the police. I wrote letters for the police. I worked in forensic mental health. You know what I mean? I'm not some horrendous individual, right? Okay, right? I'm somebody who was a law-abiding individual who had respect for the police. I had mates in the police. I used to go out with a bloody copper, bless her. Right? Okay. Prior to all this, I had, you know, my eyes have been open with this. They really have. So I'm being honest for 8 years, and I'm asking for Thames Valley Police to finally be honest. Okay, right? So thanks for listening to me. thanks for. I know you felt pushed back by me saying no. You know, you're not winning me with that. If anything, I'm annoyed at it. But I appreciate you listening to me. If you can then agree then that preferably Mr. Barber himself, but otherwise yourself, are going to get back to me by phone or email, I don't mind which, within a week of now, if you're then going to let me know what he will... response on that. Okay,
which of those options?
Brilliant, right? And if he wants to say like, right, okay, well, would this work, Ben? It's not like that has to be dun dun dun. He needs to say, you know, I'm all for dialogue. I'm all for communication. You know, if he wants to phone me in the next few days, he can do. It doesn't. But I honestly believe, given the enormity of this, right. The best way forward is that whether he has a little bit of a pre-read of it, or even if he doesn't, and he just invites me down, he says, right, Ben, before I sit down and you ruin my evenings for the next week reading this, what do I need to be aware of and what are you looking for with this? And if he wants to have that conversation beforehand, I'm more than okay for that to be the process.
Yeah, and that's what I'd be advising him to do, because I think it's really important for him to have an understanding of exactly what you want to achieve with this.
Okay.
Rather than him sort of trying to second guess it. Does that make sense?
Okay. All I will say is, just to clarify this, Mr. Barber meeting with me is not in lieu of him investigating these matters. It's as a means to do it. Yeah, it's as a means to do it. This is his opportunity because when this goes higher, and it will do otherwise, people get to say, yeah, Matthew Barber was the one who finally started holding people to account at Thames Valley.
I'm really clear that one of the things you want to achieve with this is that you want Matthew to investigate it. Now, until I sit down with Matthew and talk to him about it, I don't know how he's going to reply or respond. I know what my advice to him would be on it, in terms of having a look at it and having a conversation.
I had a phone call. I had a phone call, just to quickly clarify. I had a phone call a couple of years ago with a particularly unctuous, deceitful little individual that works for you. And I can remember saying to him, look at the pattern of the last few years. This is me again and again and again at every level saying, can I come and have a conversation with you about this? I'm more than happy to turn up to the police station about it. This is what I said originally. Right, September 2014, I wrote to a bloody cop and said, hang on, I've been falsely accused of something here. And again and again and again, I'm saying, can you look at this? I'm putting in subject data access requests saying, can I have a copy of this? At one point, I asked, like, at one point, people were saying, oh, well, we haven't received, because on 2, possibly even 3 occasions, process which I'd officially initiated was stopped under the false claim of, well, I hadn't written back to you guys. The whole, we didn't get your letter trick has got used more than once. Okay, so because this is just an example, but it's kind of holographic of the whole thing. When so on more than one occasion, me making legal, criminal accusations against certain members of staff, and I've said I want this person investigated, I want it looked at, and on 2-3 occasions, letters not received, letters which I've painfully written and had to post, right, have been signed for, recorded delivery into the Trust HQ, Kidlington, whatever, and people have said, oh, well, we didn't get your letter, right? Okay, so because repeatedly this was used as this pathetic, churlish excuse of, well, you know, like, it's not the only churlish excuse. I've had such other classics as, oh, we don't tend to look at these after that, and other such silliness that's got no teeth in law. But basically, because your comment, the non-receipt of communication was seemingly a problem. I was aware that if things were signed for special delivery, they were there, but seemingly TVP has a magic front desk. So because it was a raised and re-raised issue, I said, okay then, as I would do if I was buying a house and we just lost some paperwork between an estate agent, let's have a communications audit. So I sent in, I can remember speaking to Sarah Harper, who was then, I don't know whether she still is, the complaints outcome manager. Right, and I can remember saying to her, right, Sarah, you know, can I have a, how about then, can I have, amongst other things, can I have a copy of everything? Can you go on the records, you guys, and can you send me a copy of everything I've sent you and a copy of everything you've sent me? And then that way, because, and I said, right, can you do this? Right, and like, this is, and it checkmated a certain individual, Sarah not so, but because if you'd sent me that, and within that list, it would have included things that I had sent in, I would have then been able to go to a court and say, right, Thames Valley Police have cessated criminal investigation into these officers, claiming they didn't receive the paperwork, but their own communications audit admits that they received it to the front desk, so they've lied right, shit would have hit the fan. If they'd have sent that list to me and it deliberately hadn't have included that communication, I could have gone, okay, well, here's my post office signed thing on the website, screenshot, signed for at the desk. So Thames Valley Police is now pretending to not receive paperwork that it's signed for, that I can prove it's signed for. And so either way, the shit would have hit the fan. And so knowing that it was checkmated, knowing that it called buggers people's bluff, the response I got was, well, that's confidential. So I then wrote back saying, I'm asking for copies of material that's been sent to my eyes historically. In fact, I'm not even asking for copies. I'm just asking for you to list the title and date and author. Just, I don't even need the copy of the letter. I just need you to say that it was sent. I'm asking for you to list correspondence you've sent me that was written and addressed to my eyes, and correspondence you guys have been sent by me that was written by my eyes. How is that a breach of confidentiality? So I'm asking for a list, not even content copied thereof. I'm asking for a list of material I've written that my eyes have seen because I wrote it, and a list that was addressed to me. Okay, and your failure to do that was because you knew damn well you were checkmated about, not you personally, about all the lies about. So and then when you write saying, okay, can somebody please explain to me in law how an otherwise legally binding subject data access request can be ignored on the basis of somebody just uttering an anonymous, one of those magical admin anonymous emails. I do love them, that just says, oh, this is we can't do this because it's confidential. Right? And this is, not everybody who deals with this was in. I think initially Sarah Harper had no idea. Sarah Harper sent an email saying, when I said to her once, oh, can I have a copy of any and all paperwork to do with me? That includes niche, that includes C&C, that includes everything. And Sarah Harper, who just thought it was any other Tuesday, I CC'd me into the email, sent it up, said, oh, can Mr. Rich have a copy of all this? She had no idea it was all going to get, no, not at all, we don't speak to Ben, It's just ridiculous. The latest hilarity of a subject response was just a deliberate fingers up at me. It was just 90-degree enlarged, silly copied photocopies of. It was just, we know that you know that we know that you know we're being dodgy kind of a thing. It was just, it's just ridiculous. It's not a laugh and a joke when it's somebody's life. This is, I'm somebody. I used to work with abuse victims. I work with mentally ill people. I did a forensic psychology masters. I worked in care homes. I didn't. This has ruined my career. I am down. Just to put some emphasis on this, all of this began when a group of particularly unpleasant individuals, for their own noxious reasons, strolled into TVP and told lies about me. My very ex-partner, who I later met up with in Helsinki, herself said to me, apologised to me and said it was wrong what we did in Oxford. It was the other thing as well, and I'll say this, and this will be the first thing I say when this gets to court. We had a police officer on the phone to us, the then, I don't know, he's been promoted, probably not, he's a bit of an idiot, the then PC Naren Sormai, right, okay, who was literally on the phone to my family. Yeah, my dad and my mum had a lot of initial involvement with this. They haven't for several years, but they did do initially. I'd made reference. My dad at one point worked on complaints. He's had no involvement with this in the last several years, but he was aware of it to begin with. And this is a police officer who was on the phone to my mum, who he knew to be an ex-police officer because she'd mentioned it to him. Because I was trying to explain to this guy, like, it's not like, I'd worked in hospitals and all sorts. I'm not an idiot, but I was like, this guy's just not listening to me. So I just said, Mum, you try speaking to him. My mum phoned him up, which sounds silly, like you're then late 30s bloke getting his mum to phone somebody, but, you're like, you're next, speak to him, right? And this officer, in his own words, said, we were duped. This has been a cover-up. I can't look into this any further. And he said, yeah, there was top-down pressure for us to write things up as this. Yeah, we were anything that came in, it's all the politics. We got in shit for the grooming gangs because we kind of ignored it and covered it. Now there's this big thing when you know what I mean? Like, you know, this has gone on for, you know, this was September 2014. The pathetically veneer-thin document about TVPs ignoring the grooming gangs was February 2015, I think. At the point at which troubled little bastards walked into a police station and told known lies about me, right? Lies which my ex, like now and Sormai, this guy, he said this girl, it was like a cult. She couldn't speak. The people who, as far as I knew, had never even met Ben, right, were saying these things. I've worked with the police. I know how it works. I've had former members of Thames Valley Police look at the paperwork and said, this is not how this works. Like, the problem that happened is people who weren't my ex and had never met me strolled into that police station and nominally on her behalf, yes, with her present in weird tow, right, saying, right, Ben's done this, he's done this, and you were so busy to get we're listening to women points, right, to sort of top up the bloody spreadsheets of aren't we good, look at us listening to women now. Yeah, apologies if you were a 13-year-old girl being raped by, like, you know, grooming gangs a few years ago, but we're making up for it now. You know what I mean? If you, what's that? You've got 2 X chromosomes and you want to complain? Come on down, right? And basically, this one of your own officers said this was corrupt. Yeah, said I can't look into this any further. Police vans and all sorts of weird bullshit happened. At one point, officers were threatening to drag me into a van. I'd done nothing. All we did, my cousin who was with me, who's conspicuously not mentioned once in the paperwork because she's like a small blonde female, and that kind of goes against the me as a horrible evil lone wolf narrative. The fact that I had my female cousin with me at all times, right? Okay, she says to these coppers, you know, like, is he under arrest? The response from your lot was, what does that matter? Right? These guys then leg it. Now and Sormai, when he was asked about this, he was livid. He says to my mum's, he said, because he wrote to me a letter after this, he said this wasn't on the log. This was off the books. I've gone on the log since, and this wasn't on the book. So we had a uniformed, card-carrying, number on his arm, police officer, a warrant card holding police officer of Thames Valley Police, speaking to an individual who he knew to be a former police officer, who he knew to be 2 former police officers, because including my dad, saying this was corrupt, this was done off the books. Yes, my initial involvement, which I feel embarrassed about, we were duped, yada yada yada. At no point ever, like I'm phoning up TVP, wondering why I'm being treated like I'm atrocious. Right? It took me years to find out that false allegations of domestic, like Mr. Rich's, like it's got on the, like a thing, Fisher's restaurant, like domestic violence. My own ex, and you can look this up, in subsequent process in Finland, had to admit on oath she couldn't think of any single occasion when I'd even been aggressive to her. Like, I am listed as some sort of repeat domestic violence offender. Would you? I'll say this before I go. Would you like to know why? Because 2-3 weeks before my ex and I split up, when I hadn't seen much of her and she was annoyed at that fact, right, I'm trying to write up a dissertation for a forensic psychology master's, which had taken all of my time. It had taken all of my time because I was working and studying at the same time. And my dissertation title was on emotional abuse in intimate partner violent relationships. I was writing a master's dissertation on psychological abuse in intimate partner relationships, right? And my ex and her dickhead friends trying to cause trouble. How would you ruin, if you were going to ruin an accountant, you'd say they were dodgy with numbers. If you were going to ruin a teacher, you'd say he had an unhealthy interest in kids. How do you ruin somebody who's going around conferences and is making a name for himself as I mean, in another world, the likes of me would have been paid how many £1,000 to be doing talks at TVP. How do you ruin somebody who's making a professional name for himself doing work with intimate partner violence and psychological abuse and manipulation and all these things, right? How do you destroy that person? You stroll into a police station and you accuse him of everything that he works with and writes about, right? And it was that obvious It was that obvious. And these little wankers, I don't know what's worse, that in 8 years I've never once been given an opportunity to talk about that, or that in 8 years they never once had to prove it. There's no statement, and the reason is the individuals who were telling the police weren't my ex, and what should have been is paperwork saying person X said this. I've sent messages to Now and Sawmy where I was like, do you even know what a speech mark is? Do you even know what a speech mark is? When I worked in prisons, Tyrone said that John did this. Right, it's within quotes. None of this has happened, and it's just gone on and on and on. I'm now treated like I'm Jack the Bloody Ripper, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And all I've ever done was wanted this to be looked at. And as I said to umpteen people who've dealt with this previously, I am the guy saying, can I come and speak to TVP? I'm the guy saying, look at photos, check a video log, check a camera, do all these things, right? I'm the guy saying, look at the evidence. And Thames Valley Police are the guys ignoring it. When I'm saying, you can show all the evidence, Thames Valley Police are the people deliberately not responding lawfully to, subject data access request. When I first wrote to Sierra Bloody Reid in her incompetent self and wrote to her saying, can I have a copy of any and all this, in her then role as a data officer, her exact response was, why, what do you want it for? Anybody who's done a PowerPoint on data regulations, and this is pre-GDPR, just the stuff before then, if somebody puts in a subject data access response asking for certain material, the data officer doesn't go, why, what do you want it for? You know what I mean? It's just non-stop incompetence and corruption. People covering up for other people who've cocked up. Non-stop. And this could have been dealt with 8 years ago. And also where this has gone massive, and this is where it gets real, is Thames Valley Police, all the lies that were typed in that they were hoping I was never going to know about or see. This got worse because the lies were used as the basis of a false conviction against me abroad, and Thames Valley Police unlawfully sent material that was untrue, and it was written as if it was fact. I've seen some of the paperwork. It's in that kind of evil little 1980s looking font where it looks as if it's been investigated. So material about me was presented to a foreign court saying domestic violence abuser and all this sort of stuff, and it's metastasized into other things since, and none of this ever happened. And look, whenever I mention Now and Sawmy, no matter who I'm speaking to, any of these cronies, Western, Nick James, any of these pillocks, whenever you mention, when I'm saying one of your own officers said to my family, who were police officers, former police officers, this is corruption. He said this was done off the books. He said I can't look into this any further. He said that. Now, whether he's been got to since or whatever, who cares? But the point is this, when I worked in mental health, I've seen it where a patient slipped right in front of me, skidding a load of Fanta and banged his head on the floor. Right? And in front of my own eyes, I'm thinking, oh, bloody hell, mate, And we've straight away had to initiate an investigation. Not because we think anything dodgy's happened. We've just seen the poor pillock just slip on some bloody fizzy pop. But because if a bloke in bloody custody has got a head injury and it's not investigated, the absence of the investigation looks dodgy as hell, right? That's how anybody accountable works. I'm phoning up, emailing, everything, tweeting Thames Valley Police, ignoring 200 other points of information and observation since. But if you just did this, I'm phoning up saying I am making you guys, inspectors and chief thingies, and as it's gone all the way up, I'm making you aware of a situation where even if you don't think he was right, even if he's wrong, then you get me into PC Now and Sawmy, I was confused. Fine, if that's your story. But I am going to Thames Valley Police from day one saying one of your own officers, who yes has done wrong as well and told lies and did other things as well, but this individual, so he's not perfect, this individual has he himself, one of your own officers, has broke rank and feels so strongly about what happened that he phoned the police family of an individual and phoned up to say, look, I can't do anything more about this, but this wasn't right how this happened. This was done off the books and it was crooked and it was done with private mobile phones and it was all dodgy. And one of your own officers told some ex-police people that, and when I make Thames Valley Police aware of that, right, at every level, including your former PCC, your response is to not only not investigate that, but it's to try and make me out to be a thing, to vilify me, to come up with silly rules like, oh, we don't investigate things that far back. It was a matter of months when you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I've had every excuse, the most off the cuff, making it up as you're going along, in-house secretarial rules. And it's like, what if a judge, minute one, I could speak to a judge for 2-3 days about this. Minute one of a case, when this finally goes before court, will be a judge turning round to whoever is representing Thames Valley saying, you were very clearly made aware that a member of the public had been phoned up by one of your officers who knew he was speaking to former professional police officers who used the term corrupt, used the term off the books, and says things were done by dodgy private phone calls. And and how did you and several members of the people of the police force, ranking officers and admin staff, how have you responded to this since? And all you've done is vilify Mr. Rich, make out that he's some sort of horrible thing, write lies to other police forces and other courts that have allowed him to be temporarily falsely convicted of things he hadn't done, right? And have allowed this to ruin his name and metastasise across his whole life, right? And it's like the absence of that. If a judge or a panel of any rank or import said to TVP, why, when you were made aware that not that Mr. Rich thought you were corrupt, although that's important, and the patheticness of your own complaints department and the corruption therein is a point we'll come to, but when one of your own officers tells a member of the public that TVP is corrupt and that this was off the books and that when you're made aware of that, you don't even acknowledge Mr. Navan exists. And nobody ever even. It's like he's like Voldemort. You can't say his name. Do you know what I mean? Now I get he's a bloody idiot, right? And I get, I'm perfectly aware of the mechanisms behind why he got recruited. But he was a police officer with a warrant card at the time that happened. And this is the level this is at. This is the level this is at. It's not that the likes of me, who, and people can say what they like about me, but he likes the sound of his own voice. I spend most days in absolute silence, working by myself, fixing lawnmowers and motorbikes. I don't speak most days. I don't like the sound of my own voice. My voice is hoarse and sore, having to have this phone call. But, right, this is the most I've spoken in months, but I have to say it because you are a chance of this getting looked at. Or you're just going to be a lackey and a mate of Sierras and Waskets and all these other pricks who are just going to cover it up and look after themselves. And it's getting ridiculous. And sooner or later, the sword's going to fall. It's ridiculous. You've got to do something other than piss a load of money to self-appointed women's rights people doing workshops so you can put badges in foyers and say, look, people have got to start taking accountability. People have got to start police on the basis of evidence. Nobody even checked. Nobody even, when Now and Saw first spoke, the stuff in the log saying currently with Mr. Rich, right? For what it's worth, a previous member of Thames Valley Police that I knew told me that log had been retrospectively altered, but that's a whole other conversation. It's got on that log with Mr. Rich now, and it's got it's supposedly it's supposed to be some sort of CNC log or something, right? And it's got with Mr. Rich now, and it's like at the time that says that, I was on a train going back to Birmingham. It's literally lies. People have retrospectively written shit. I mean, it's just a cover-up, and it's just like, and you had an opportunity to bang heads on this and put it right 8 years ago. And it's only got, it went massive when the lies Thames Valley I went before a foreign court accused of something else I hadn't done, right, which I was eventually acquitted of, right, and I was accused of this,
yeah.
And the material that was used to convict me, that I wasn't allowed to see, because that's how dodgy things are, was the material sent by the Sierra Reeds of the world, listing me as all these horrible things. So somebody who'd never even met me, friends, would-be boyfriends or whatever of my ex, stroll into bloody that Nick that's over the field from where St Hilda's College is, strolled in, tell lies. That doesn't quite work. Now and Sormai gets a bit confused, bless him. He's not the brightest of things. So a couple of dodgy phone calls are made later. Oh, and a van can turn up, right? And all this gets happened. And it's got me. I never even shouted at my ex. Like a fact that she had to admit on oath. I've had phone calls with Thames Valley Police where I've said, right, go, because it's public information, go on the Finlex index of like court cases. It's a transcripted thing. You can literally listen to it or download it. Go on the court evidence of the court. My on oath in court, my ex had to admit I never once even, and yet I am listed as a repeat domestic violence offender, and far worse, may I add, and far worse. And then you can't win because you go months, if not years, without anything being done about it. You then speak to somebody about it, and yes, you're emotional about it, but what the pressure of speech you have is not, you sort of misread it. It's not my frustration per se, it's my bloody, there's no despair without hope. It's my enthusiasm that the person you're speaking to, maybe on this occasion, might be able to do something about it. So you first speak to Sarah Harper, or you first speak to somebody, and even though you think, they sound alright, Sarah sounded alright when I first spoke to her, Nick James just sounded a prick, but when you first speak to people, you think maybe this will be the one. And so in that phone call, you mention as many things as you do because you're desperate. Desperate is the word, that one person is going to go, hang on, what was that bit you just said then? Hang on, one of our own officers called it corrupt. Well, hang on a minute, Ben. We have an hilariously, we have an anti-corruption unit, Ben. I'll task them with it. But before I leave the building, Ben, I'm going to go and speak to our anti-corruption people. Bullshit. Never happens, right? Okay? Never happens. And so you mention all these things, right? And then I get badged as as if I am the effect. I am not the cause. This is not me 8 years ago. Okay? This is me now speaking to you, who is probably on the balance of probability no better than the rest of them, but on that 1 in 1,000 chance that you are straight, that you might do something about this, right? I have to make every available. I can't sit here now telling you how corrupt you are, because what good's that going to do? You probably are, but what good's it going to do me? So I have to just dare to hope, and I try and now stop you from going home and having dinner with your partner by telling you this, hoping that if nothing else you'll just personally motivate. But then you can't win because people write lies. These people wrote lies, so it's like, oh, Ben's a manipulator. So he's I'm being manipulated. Ben's not a fucking manipulator. Ben is but this is what they do. Like this, it's a half truth. A half truth is a terrible thing. Oh, he manipulates people. I worked in a fucking, you know what I mean? This is the thing. Yeah. And this is what they do.
What we're going to do, Ben, what we're going to do is we're going to take it one stage at a time, and at each point of that stage, you will get a sense of whether I am, to use your words, a prick, or whether I am someone genuine. So the first thing I am going to commit to is having the conversation with Matthew, getting him to read your documentation and confirming for me which of those options he wants to take. And we, either Matthew or myself, will come back to you by phone or email within 7 days of today to confirm which option.
100%. Okay, brilliant. And as I say, my own view is that it's preferable that Mr. Barber speak with myself first.
Of course.
He gets a sense of this, because I've got nothing to hide. Nothing to hide. The only bad things you can find about me are those which are untrue. Do you know what I mean? This is the thing. Are those which are untrue. You can bring all... If I turn up there and bloody that corrupt bitch Waskett and Reed and Nan Sormai and Western, you can bring the merry bloody lot of them. Right? Because none of these people will say this to your face. If those two, to be fair, one was a little bit more polite, as much as he's corrupt. There's a slim ginger guy, the plump dark-haired guy. You can bring everybody who's ever been involved with this. I will sit there happily, and I will say, right, we'll do this properly, because this is a bloody lie, and not any of them have had the bloody morality to say, look, we fucked up here, right? Okay. I'm a mechanic. I'll say this before I go. I'm a mechanic now. I spent years working with mentally ill people, all these things. When you're recorded as being some sort of fucking evil, psychopathic abuser of women, it's kind of hard to work in clinical psychology. So my career went down the toilet, right? Okay. You know, I passed every single exam you need to pass to be a forensic psychologist in this country. When I've finished speaking with you, I've got to go fix a lawnmower. That's what this has done to my life. Okay. That's what this has done to my life. Okay. So basically, like, you know, this has absolutely ruined my life, but like, this doesn't sustain me. It's not a hobby. It doesn't feed me. I'm bored. I was bored of this 7 3/4 years ago, right? But the point is, I've had to speak with various legal people. A plan is now in place. Various barristers and people have been conversed with, and now it's like, look, enough is enough. This has gone through every attempt. This is TVP's last chance to sort this out. Yeah. The appetite publicly, as much as I say, there's a smoke screen to make it all about the woke stuff. The public are increasingly aware of a deliberate absence of accountability with the police, and the time to strike legally is now. And if this either gets dealt with properly by Barber, or this is going places legally, TVP are not going to like, and nobody can call me. Like I've said to about 10 of you. I grew up with the police around the table. My mum and dad were. Let me tell you what bad people do. They run away and the police go after them. Bad people aren't figuratively or literally knocking on the door of the police station saying, I'd like to talk to you, please. Now, that isn't because I'm some sort of brazen fucking psychopath that just doesn't care. It's because I'm telling the truth and I've got nothing to hide. And the police should be the ones doing the chasing, and they're not. They're doing the hiding and the excuse making. I'm saying, show us all this material. I've got nothing to hide. Instead, from you guys, I get, here's an 11-teen silly bloody pretend made up ad hoc off the cuff. We made it up over coffee in the office reasons why we can't share this or show this. It's just ridiculous. And it's gone on so long that when this now finally gets to court, people are going to bang heads, because they're going to look at this and they're going to go, it's not just that these people were intrinsically doing wrong, but who had oversight of them that was letting this happen, and who had oversight of those people? And like I say, you know, we're at the point where there's an anti-corruption unit in TVP. I'm hilariously informed. I've made TVP aware of the fact that one of your own officers described this as off the books and corrupt. And I've never once even had a phone call from those anti-corruption people. And this is how serious this has got. This is how, so I've given you some. I know this might appear contradictory, because on the one hand I'm saying to you, this is not your responsibility to sort out, it's Mr. Barber's. But what I'm doing here is giving you a small flavour. This is by no means 5% of it. I'm giving you a small flavour of what it is I'm dealing with. And if all you can take from that is this is an individual who, unless we deal with this properly, is not going to go. When the pillock idiot overpaid Mr. Hammond writes such things as, well, this is finished now, as if some sort of Urbum et Orbum announcement from the pulpit. Who the hell does he think he's kidding? Right, okay? Who the hell does he think he's kidding? This is not over until it's dealt with. This is the only way this. Do I strike you as somebody who does not have the motivation to spend whatever money he has on barristers and all sorts, where this now goes, as I sadly have realised it's probably going to have to go, right, okay? As I sadly have, do you know what I mean, right, okay, right? So, you know, I'm now like, right, okay, I didn't want to pick an enormously costly and quite damaging legal fight with Thames Valley Police, right? I didn't want to do that. I was like, I grew up with the police, okay? My mum and dad were in the police. All the mates that came round our house and rode motorbikes and played snooker with my dad were in the police. I had Christmas parties in a police station. I played darts in a police station.
No, I get that.
I'm not an anti-police person. Listen to how I sound. The only thing that has made me like this is the non-stop continual professional lies and pathetic absence of moral accountability from a group of people who have the audacity to lord it over others, and enough is enough.
Yeah.
So I'm giving Mr. Barber this chance.
Let me speak to Matthew.
Thank you very much.
One of us will come back to you, Ben, all right?
And I thank you for the hour and a half of your time, but as I say, I thank you for the hour and a half of your time, but as I say, right now, as far as I know, somebody who isn't called Matthew Barber's reading this, and that needs to quite quickly change, which is why we're going to go the way we're going to go. Thank you very much for your time, and I know nothing about you personally, right? Yeah, right, but you get where I'm coming from. And okay, you take care. Thank you very much.
Take care.